Hey everyone, I'm Buster Green, and right now I only need 97 subscribers to get monetized. That's less than the population of Rhode Island. I know you guys are out there. I just need 97 of you to do the right thing and subscribe so I can eventually buy a delicious pizza and eat it. Everyone loves pizza. I love pizza. I want to buy a pizza. Help me out here. Okay, so hey everyone, this is officially my second manga review. And like my previous manga review of God Mazinger, this manga is also written by Go Nagai. But God Mazinger was written in the 80s, and this is a more recent release coming from 2014. It is Grendizer Giga, a reboot of the classic world-beloved character UFO robot Grendizer. Now, this is apparently a very divisive and polarizing manga because it was released in very divisive and polarizing times. I'm getting mixed messages from people that either really love this one or really hate this one. And everywhere I go to look at this book, the ratings on the book are overall good, but every time I go to talk to anyone about the book, everyone tells me they hate it. So I need to figure this out, and I want to make up my own mind about it, whether or not I'm going to love or hate this book. So far, all I can tell is people pretty much love the book because it's a reboot of Grendizer, but people hate the book because it's apparently not a good reboot of Grendizer. And on top of that, the prevailing criticism of this book is it's one of Go Nagai's least original manga, and the big argument is that it's a ripoff of beloved 1980s space manga, Space Adventure Cobra, which itself was kind of just a ripoff of James Bond in outer space. But hey, Space Adventure Cobra did a lot of cool, unique things. He had a psycho gun, he had a rogues gallery, and Space Adventure Cobra was mostly just Cobra cruising around with his android best friend, the armored lady, who was also his bodyguard, his co-pilot, and would lead him into all these adventures. And from what this big unruly mob has told me going to this manga just wholesale steals this concept and a bunch of other concepts from Cobra. So yeah, a lot of fans just hate this book, even though the book itself has a good review average. So I'm very curious to check this one out. I'm very excited because as it is in 2022, Grendizer is finally getting a reboot in the form of Grendizer Project G. And I feel like this previous reboot was significant enough that I need to see what it's all about. And yeah, I'm going to decide now if I love it or hate it. Now, this is another Go Nagai manga that is above his usual batting average. Go Nagai usually makes mangas that only have 5 chapters, but this one clocks in at a pretty hefty 11 chapters, which is more significant than usual. Alright, anyway, let's get down to reading it. Alright, so starting with chapter 1, it looks like I'm reading an English translation of the French version. This makes sense since Grendizer was the #1 cartoon in the 70s in France. Alright, so on the first page is a full color spread of what Grendizer Giga is. It's fighting in space against his ancient enemies, the vegans from planet Giga, and a few interesting things strike me right off the bat. Now, everything has been graphically redesigned for this series. Now, I do not like the way they redesigned Duke Freed. His new outfit looks super Power Ranger-y, and I liked his old outfit, which was more black. The brighter colors just make him feel very stereotypical as far as superheroes go. And I'm just completely on board with the changes to Grendizer the robot though. In classic Grendizer, the cockpit was in Grendizer's head, but literally it had a windshield for a mouth, which looked really dumb, especially when you saw Grendizer from certain angles. Giga thankfully fixes this by adjusting the windshield to a forehead jewel, and the later chapters show that this jewel even pops out, essentially making this now a ripoff of Mazinger Z's hover piloter. The other major change is that classic Grendizer kind of connected to his UFO and wore it like a full-body costume, kind of like a guy sitting in an inner tube. Grendizer Giga is way more dignified than that. The UFO now wraps around Grendizer's body in a super interesting way that makes it look a little bit like a car, but also like a throne, which ties into Grendizer's nickname, the King of Space. I love this design. It is very classy. I know Grendizer Project G has already boldly stated that it will not be using any material at all from Giga, but if they take one thing from Giga, I'm hoping that the UFO spacer has a similar dignified form like this. because it just looks very regal, but also very threatening, and way more serious than a guy singing an air tube, which logistically would make the spacer extremely flimsy after Grendizer exits it. Alright, on to the next page. So, we get a quick shot of Grendizer's Armoroid lady just being there. And then Grendizer ejects out of his UFO and proceeds to dash around space doing some attacks. We see some new 1990s style saucer beasts, but Grendizer just easily dashes past them. He does some flips, he does some jumps, he fires off some rocket punches, he kills like 20 dudes all at once. And also this new Grendizer Giga has a superhero cape, which is a nice stylistic touch. It then pulls out its double Harkin and kills like 20 more dudes, and now the fight is over. He just killed like 60 dudes in like 60 seconds. Grendizer returns to its UFO. Unfortunately, this was a futile fight because even though he repelled the vegan invaders, they committed their massacre, they did their damage, they destroyed the planet of Freed. So now Duke Freed, the Duke of the planet Freed, is the Duke of Nothing because he saved nothing, he allowed his people to be slaughtered, he now has no home to go back to. He and his Armoroid lady are the sole survivors of this space massacre. So now he's homeless. So with nowhere to go, he decides to move to Earth because Earth is a primitive planet, and because it's high in resources, the Vegans will surely attack there next because they're just straight up raiders. And Duke Freed knows this. He knows them so well that he's going to create an elaborate trap using the Earth. So when the vegans arrive on the Earth, he's going to jump out in Grendizer and just fucking kill them all to take his revenge. We also find out that Armoroid Lady is Maria. If you didn't watch the old Grendizer series, in the old Grendizer series, Duke Freed had a little sister named Maria, but now she's just been wholesale replaced by a robot, which is kind of a cop-out. Anyway, so Grendizer flies down to this cattle ranch because that's where the old Grendizer TV show took place, and now we jump cut to some guy named Uryu waking from a nightmare, and he's crying. Now, Uryu has a smoking hot tomboy sister named Hikaru, who barges in and tells him he has to eat breakfast and feed some horses because he works at this farm where he lives. On top of working at this farm where he lives, he also goes to a private academy somewhere where all the guys hate him and all the girls love him. So, side note for me, this is my first time reading a more modern Go Nagai manga from later in his career, and it's very interesting how a lot of the things are same old, but I do feel like he has made subtle improvements to his art and the details are stronger now. Anyway, so this main character is Daisuke Uryu. He's an extremely handsome, popular farm boy, I guess, and some bullies think about beating his up, but his sexy tomboy sister Hikaru gets to them first and beats them up first, and they back down because a girl is interacting with them. Now Hikaru tells them to back off because Daisuke didn't ask to be sexy, he just is and he can't help it. And meanwhile, every single girl at the school is simping for this guy, but they're all so below his standards that he just tells each of them to fuck off and go home. Now Daisuke mumbles some stuff to himself as he walks out. It seems that he finds this all annoying because he's not ready to start dating because he's still hung up on a girl he used to like who he can't find anymore. Anyway, Hikaru tells Daisuke he needs to come back to the farm and do more chores. And at this point I'm realizing that the manga I'm reading is a bad translation of French to English. And some of the language logic is not matching up one for one, so I'm going to have to really stretch my brain to fully make sense of this manga, I guess. That being said, even though Daisuke Uryu lives with Hikaru on his farm, it doesn't seem like they're actually brother and sister. It seems that he's just a homeless guy and she's like the farmer's daughter. Or maybe they adopted him. Anyway, the farm is run by Danbei Makiba, a hilarious reoccurring Go Nagai character. He's popped up in a few places over the years, and I think he had a major role in Cutie Honey, but this is one of his prime forms as being this stupid farmer here. He also has a ranch employee named Jiro Now, who looks like a more in-shape Boss Borat. This guy doesn't really do anything, he's just here to fill out the extras. Anyway, Hikaru tries to get Daisuke to join the soccer team with her, but he wants to play kendo, and then Maria shows up, the same Maria who was Grendizer's Armoroid lady. Daisuke says she is his sister, and they immediately hug, which shatters and confuses Hikaru's understanding of who Daisuke is. He clarifies that Maria is his actual sister, but he hasn't seen her for 10 years, so I guess that clarifies that Maria is his sister, Hikaru is not. But Hikaru finds the whole situation weird, and Daisuke clarifies that actually Maria is his half-sister, and she's half American, and they used to live in the USA, but now they don't, and that's why he's homeless. And Hikaru is very suspicious of this whole thing because it's a shitty story. And also, Daisuke told everyone up to now he was an orphan, so that doesn't check out. And also, Maria owns this very rich, swanky car, which is unusual because she's a young woman, so how'd she afford that? Hikaru declares at this point that she just straight up hates Daisuke's sister and considers her to be a rival for his love. What the fuck? How often do the Japanese marry their sisters? That is such a weird fucking train of thought. Why would she ever think that? Anyway, so Daisuke drives off in Maria's fancy car and is very impressed by the car. He asks Maria to live with him on the ranch, but she refuses and says she lives somewhere else nearby. Now, after that, the city explodes, a bunch of cars blow up, a bunch of people randomly die, and holy shit, Japan is suddenly being invaded by UFOs. Wow, that happens so fast. Anyway, then all these bug commandos jump out of the UFOs and they start parachuting down in that classic cinematic way that Go Nagai fucking loves. The bug commandos pull out their rifles and they shoot a bunch of people just randomly living on the street. Maria explains to Daisuke that this is the vegan advanced scout army and that the vegans have finally invaded the Earth. Then one of the UFOs transforms into a saucer beast and fucking like eats an entire city's block worth of people. Finally, the bug army gets to attacking the car, so the car at this point just turns into a flying fucking rocket car and flies away. The flying rocket car flies to Grendizer's UFO, and Daisuke is very confused by what's going on, but Maria reminds him that he is Duke Fried, the pilot of Grendizer. Okay, that's the end of chapter 1. Now, at the end of chapter 1, it's obvious that Duke Fried has somehow altered his memory, and Maria is definitely that armoroid lady from before, but she's a little bit more of Duke Fried's executive assistant / manager in this manga than Armoroid Lady was to Cobra. Anyway, let's keep reading. Okay, chapter 2. So the flying car flies around Grendizer Giga in this super cinematic shot. Grendizer Giga in this shot almost looks like Grendizer sitting inside a roller coaster. Now the Armoroid Lady reveals to Duke Fried that he erased his memories on purpose so he could live a normal life and enjoy his peace. But now the peaceful times are over and he has to return to being a badass space hero. The space hero known as Cobra! Okay, stop the fucking video. God fucking damn it, this is literally the premise of the first episode of Space Adventure Cobra. Ugh! Okay. I'm enjoying this manga. I want to have fun with it, but I'm really hoping we get a good Uncle Go twist with Hikaru's role in the story. But oh my god, the plagiarism claims against this manga are 100% true, 100% valid, and that's so weird. Don't get me wrong, Go Nagai has been working since the 70s. The rules for what you can do in anime and manga have changed so much in the past 5 decades. Like, there was this cameo boom in the 80s where like literally every anime had to have like Godzilla and Darth Vader in it. And at the time that was super cool and you could get away with it, even as long as they added nothing to the plot. But fast forward to 2020, and now anime fair use laws in Japan have gotten so draconian and strict, Osamatsu-san can't even make like a Naruto or an Attack on Titan joke without having a fucking season premiere copyright strike. And that's so fucking weird, because I know Go Nagai has done frequent things where he remixes plot storylines from his own work, and I'm always okay with that. But I've never seen a manga rip off the premise of another manga like this does. And as much as I'm loving this manga up to this point, I see the controversy, and I see the controversy is real. I am going to give this story a pass, though, if that is the only thing they rip off. Alright, returning to the manga. So, Maria resets Duke Fried's brain with her pigtails, because her hair, even though it looks like hair, it's actually all like crazy computer, like fiber optic wires. And meanwhile, the saucer beasts continue rampaging across Japan, and somehow it's evolved and turned into like a dinosaur Evangelion unit motherfucker. Now, the military tries to kill it, but they just straight up fail. Meanwhile, Duke Fried's brain reboots, and he realizes that he's a badass alien prince, the sole survivor of Planet Fried. Planet Fried was slaughtered by vegans, so he hates all those fucking vegans. Now, we did get all the same information in chapter 1, so I'm not sure why they really bothered with the whole memory erasure thing other than to rip off Cobra. Duke Fried's brain 100% resets, and he's now 100% edgelord Duke Fried again, so he and Maria suit up and they release Grendizer Giga. Grendizer Giga pops out of its phaser and it flies off to the city. Now, meanwhile, inside the dinosaur Eva, we see the 3 pilots. We have this mysterious dude in a cloak who resembles the bastard child of King Gordon and Baron Ashura. And we have these other two bugly, butt-faced aliens who don't do shit. Anyway, they recognize Grendizer and they're very surprised to see it. And then Grendizer whips out its rocket punches and they're fucked because they can't dodge it. They all instantly die. The aliens start doing a full Decepticon retreat now that Grendizer's here and they can't play with that shit. And Grendizer does an upgraded version of the Space Thunder attack called God Thunder, and it just literally kills all the aliens on the entire map. Now, this seems like it would just be over at this point, but another Saucer Beast arrives and jumps on Grendizer's back, and it's a very aggressive scene. The Saucer Beast realizes that it can't hurt Grendizer, so its only option for survival is to try and cook Duke Freed to death with its own electricity, and Chapter 2 ends on this cliffhanger as Duke Freed is knocked unconscious. That takes us to Chapter 3. So Chapter 3 starts with Grendizer falling out of the sky dead because Duke Freed is unconscious, so Maria takes over as the co-pilot, because that's the same shit Armoroid Lady used to do in Cobra. Maria continues piloting Grendizer remotely while trying to wake Duke Freed up, and then we get something really interesting. Maria the android apparently has her own android assistant named Maria, which is very funny, kind of confusing, and completely nonsensical. Now, the second Maria, who I'm just going to identify as Black Maria for clarity's sake since she wears a black outfit, has her own giant robot named Florian Beat. Florian Beat? That has gotta be a bad translation. That's the worst name I've heard since Dark Pharmacist. So Florian Beat pops out of Grendizer 2, and it also has this Armoroid Lady vibe, despite being your typical Mazinger girlfriend robot sidekick that most Mazinger series usually have. Florian Beat puts up a surprisingly really good fight against the Saucer Beast, despite being much smaller than it. And it fights it for a good 4 minutes until Duke Freed finally wakes up. Now, Freed says taking out Beat was stupid because even though Beat is doing a really good job, Freed thinks Beat is too small. And anyway, Grendizer comes back in the fight, kicks Beat out, and then just goes straight up to town, throwing its Harkins, throwing its Lightnings, throwing all its shit. Even more vegans die in this carnage, and then Florian Beat flies off to kill even more of them, and she apparently destroys their mothership, leaving the insect soldiers horrified that they're now homeless and stranded on Earth. Now, at this time, the army shows up and just guns down all the survivors, so thankfully, hopefully, there are no survivors. Maria drives Duke Freed back to the farm he's staying at, and Duke Freed orders Maria to erase his memories again because he thinks he will accidentally expose his secret identity if he knows who he is. Alright, now stepping in here, I can see why a lot of people drop this manga in Chapter 2 for ripping off Cobra, but Chapter 3 does at least take it in a different direction, because even though they both started with protagonists erasing their memories and then getting their memories instantly back, Cobra was just 100% Cobra after that, and Duke Freed is playing out this very weird secret identity trope where even he doesn't know who he really is, so that's the secretest secret identity I've ever seen. Now, I'm okay with this because it creates some interesting dramatic storylines for the story to go down, and I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Alright, so Maria drops Daisuke off at the farm, and Hikaru is being a total jealous bitch, and she plots to get rid of Maria because she cannot stand Daisuke being around any other woman. Even if Maria is supposedly Daisuke's romantic sister, Hikaru sees her as a romantic rival. Also, if she's this jealous about him at home, I'm surprised she doesn't give him more of a crap at school where everyone's just fawning over him. Anyway, back in the city, the military arrogantly declares victory, but then out of nowhere, 2 bugmen jump out some trash. The bugmen kill the military, eat their brains, and then shit out their bodies. Now their bodies have become these pod people, which is some really nasty, creepy shit, and that's the cliffhanger for Chapter 3. These 2 bug invaders are going to somehow turn the army against Grendizer or do some other malicious shit. Alright, so that takes us to Chapter 4. Chapter 4 starts off with some random space battle crap, and we're introduced to Lord Brador, commander of the Vegan Space Army. And he just looks like a buff tokusatsu vampire. It's weird that even in the manga, he has this essence of a man wearing a plastic suit. Anyway, all his lieutenants are surprised to see him, and they tell him that the force that went to conquer Earth has just been completely wiped out, somehow. So he's like, just send another army, and here we go again. Now, the storyline loop has completely restarted, except it hasn't. Daisuke goes back to school. Hikaru surprises him by chasing him on a horse. I guess, yeah, they can do that. They own a horse farm. She makes Daisuke get on the horse so they won't be late to school. And then there's a couple of fun panels where they enter the school on a horse and everyone's like, oh, wow, a horse! And then the horse goes back to the ranch because the horse knows how to get there. So at school, things are really interesting. Now, as you know, yesterday, a major invasive alien army destroyed a major city in Japan, killed hundreds of people, was ultimately destroyed by the combined forces of Grendizer, his lady friend, and the Japanese army. Hilariously, though, since Duke Freed brainwashed himself to forget all this, none of this makes sense to him. He has to keep his secret identity, and so because he erased the events of what happened to him yesterday, he is just having like a mind-bogglingly harder time processing this information than literally anyone else in his school, who just is like, okay, this is the reality. Aliens are real. We're all fucked. Like, all his classmates instantly understand that this is a life-changing, world-altering event, and Duke Freed is just like, what the fuck is going on? Am I being pranked? Is this a movie? Ha ha ha. So then he starts really thinking about it, and he starts having like PTSD deja vu. Because he kind of knows what happened yesterday, but he doesn't know how he got here. And now, extremely conveniently, just as this is all going down, the news announces that the aliens are going to be taken to the Diamond Laboratory to be dissected. And Duke Freed is like, I need to go to the Diamond Laboratory and see this dissection. And just as this happens, son of Professor Diamond, Yuji Diamond, walks through the door and invites Duke Freed to go to the Diamond Laboratory and do exactly that. Wow! Super simple. Barely an inconvenience. Oh my god. Okay. So, after the school has another assembly because, again, this is a 9/11 life-changing, world-changing event. Aliens are real now. So this leads into the most awkward high school assembly that could have been created, where the principal just comes out and is like, hey everybody, aliens are real now. I guess that means all religions are wrong, huh? Oh, and thousands of people just died fighting aliens. That sucks. Anyway, the school assembly is very boring. But then, just when you think it can't get any more boring, those two bug human freaks from the last chapter show up, and they look a lot more like bugs now and a lot less like humans. Anyway, they somehow know that Duke Freed attends this high school, so they barge in with machine guns and start immediately slaughtering all the kids in the school. Jesus fucking Christ, wow. That is very modern day controversial. But then again, doesn't every Go Dagai manga have a scene where like dozens of high school students are slaughtered? I guess it's just hitting a lot closer to home based on recent events and the fact that this is literally teenagers being slaughtered down with like assault weapons. Anyway, that's your cliffhanger. Oh god. Okay, chapter 5. So we continue in the high school showing the students being mowed down by bullets. Duke Freed is horrified. He's having a bad deja vu trip. And in the midst of this, Karu has a full meltdown over her friends being murdered and goes to tackle the gunmen. Before she can do anything though, Yuji Diamond, taking advantage of the chaos of Kaoru's like show of force, jumps in with 2 kendo sticks and hits the bugmen and makes them drop their guns. He ends up hitting one of the bugmen so hard, he cracks open his skull. There's blood everywhere. The other bugman gets back up though, and Hikaru mows him down with a fucking assault rifle, which is crazy dramatic. She's obviously traumatized. Daisuke takes the gun away from her and she just starts hysterically crying. And then she faints from all this trauma. Fast forward to the end of the day. Hikaru is normal again. She's at home. She's making her dad dinner. Apparently, everyone thinks she's a hero, not a murderer, because they were bugmen, not human beings, and therefore she broke no laws and murdered no one. Apparently, while Hikaru is doing this lady work all of a sudden, making the dinner, Daisuke and Yuji went off to the Diamond Laboratory to see this alien dissection they were all super psyched about. However, at the same time, out of nowhere, one of the bugmen from earlier, I guess the one who had his like head cracked open, he came back to life and he tracked Hikaru back to her house to take revenge for his buddy. So he suddenly jumps through the window. He doesn't have his gun anymore, but he tries to kill Hikaru with a knife. But she is taking no shit today from these bug people, so she smacks the dude across the face with an entire pot of still boiling soup. Then they run outside where a UFO drops out a saucer beast, and the saucer beast nearly kills Hikaru. So at the last second, she fucking transforms into fucking cutie honey. Holy, unexpected, unwanted Go Nagai crossover, Batman! So I have to use a picture of TV Cutie Honey, because even though it's relatively classic 1970s Cutie Honey that shows up, Nagai has so over-detailed her nipples in his classic perverted way, and given her a super X-ray camel toe to boot. And Jesus, this just came so out of nowhere. Alright, so I need to take a step back again and analyze this moment from a metatextual standpoint. Danpei, the owner of the farm, was Hikaru's father, but like I said before, the character has popped up randomly in a few different Go Nagai properties, and his two most famous roles are being the farm owner, being Hikaru's father in Grendizer, but also being Cutie Honey's perverted dad / robot scientist. And it looks like in this volume, Nagai is trying to have his cake and eat it too by just combining both versions of Danpei into the same character and just retconning it that they were always the same dude. This is a very meta plot twist, but I hate what this does to Hikaru. Because a volume ago, Hikaru was this cool, strong, hyper-jealous tomboy manic pixie dream girl, having these PTSD moments from her friends being gunned down. It was real, it was an allegory for the fact that we live in this fucked up world where school shootings happen. But fuck all that. All the character growth has just stopped, and now she's Cutie Honey. Everything she ever was is just gone, and now she's everything Cutie Honey has been for the past 30 years. Because Cutie Honey is a robot who doesn't experience character growth. She doesn't experience change. She's not a valid love interest. And oh my fuck, that means that every single attractive woman in this book is now a robot. Go Nagai, you fucking pervert. You got rid of all the fucking human lady characters and made them all robots. Go Nagai, you need to go on a fucking date. I am fucking sorry. Stop fucking lusting over robot pussy. Have you not been with a real woman lately? What is wrong with you? Ugh! Well, anyway, now we have a Cutie Honey crossover on our hands. So I hope you like it. Chapter 6. Okay, so yeah, Grendizer is over and now we're just doing Cutie Honey. Thankfully, in between chapters, Cutie Honey went from being way too sexy with nipples flying everywhere to 1970s G-rated Cutie Honey. Anyway, Cutie Honey destroys all the aliens, and it turns out that all the other people working on the ranch are also cyborgs with this typical Cyborg 009 secret body weapon thing going on. And then we flip back to the Diamond Research Laboratory where Grendizer is still happening. We now return to Grendizer, still in progress. And Daisuke and his friend Yuji show up there to get illegal access to all these confidential alien dissection reports, important state secrets, international security secrets, things that would be United Nations level top secrets. Anyway, they just tell them everything, and they also give Daisuke a job there, and they also buy him a bicycle. This is the most generous laboratory ever. Daisuke is still having weird deja vu from the fact that he erased his own memory, and I respect him for trying to erase his memory to have a normal life, but that's not going to work anymore. The Earth is in the midst of a very hot alien invasion, and at this point he's working against himself by deleting information he needs to know. His secret identity is compromised, and he wants to research the aliens anyway. And the aliens also just straight up know who he is, so it's useless to bother hiding it anymore. He's just disservicing himself. Daisuke goes back to the ranch where everything is completely normal again at first. But then Daisuke notices there's a huge fire. And Hikaru and Danpei just laugh it off and tell him to ignore it because they're burning some garbage. They all have a big laugh and they blow it all off, and then there's an absolutely perfect camera pullout to show that the fire is a massive burning pile of alien corpses. That's dark as shit, and I love it. Alright, so they go back to the laboratory after that, where another alien who they thought was dead wakes back up. It bugs the fuck out, and it kills a lady and turns her into another pod person. But this time, it's a ladybug pod person. So, oh no, is this a setup for a Cutie Honey battle, or is this just going to lead to some weird sexual nonsense? Alright, so we get more aliens arguing in space, and they're still freaked out that they keep sending aliens to Earth and they don't come back. So all they can do is just like, send more aliens to Earth. I'm sure it'll work out 3rd time's the charm. So a few days later, Daisuke is now working at the alien research lab when another huge army of aliens come down to Earth and they attack Shibuya in Tokyo. Now, as the aliens arrive, Grendizer immediately jumps out of the ocean and goes straight into battle. And this time, Maria is just straight up piloting Grendizer, which seems like a much easier answer to all the problems of the story. Does Duke Freed even want to pilot Grendizer? Maria does, so now she's piloting it. Alright, apparently this is the end of Volume 1. Now, there aren't as many chapters in Volume 2, so I'm hoping Volume 2 works out. Chapter 7, we get our first part of the 2nd volume, which has a new cover, and check it out. Now this book is just straight up being pimped out as a Grendizer Cutie Honey crossover. Now we get some logistics that Daisuke is living peacefully in Hokkaido, and meanwhile the saucer beasts are destroying Tokyo, and Daisuke doesn't know because he made himself stupid. Now what's interesting that the aliens that are invading Tokyo aren't bug aliens, they're these lizard aliens, so maybe they're another alien species. Anyway, suddenly Grendizer appears right in front of Daisuke, and Maria hops out and just instantly unbrainwashes him with like no explanation. Daisuke immediately personality changes into dramatic edgelord Duke Freed, and he's ready to kill some fucking aliens. He gets into Grendizer, leaves Maria behind, which is a huge mistake because Maria is useful. And at the same time, Yuji steals this prototype human-made flying saucer called the AFB. If I remember my Grendizer correctly, this is the humiliating bitch sidekick machine that they put Koji Kabuto in the TV show Grendizer. So I guess Yuji is filling in for Koji's role. Anyway, he sees Grendizer fly by, and now he wants to get himself a piece of the action. He also saw Grendizer's pilot through the big windshield and noticed it was totally Daisuke, his best friend. Anyway, so Tokyo seems to be being invaded by this new group of aliens called the Trolls. What an original and modern name! Anyway, at the same time, Hikaru notices that Daisuke has disappeared. So we get the most incredibly sexualized tension sequence where all her clothes rip off and she turns into Cutie Honey, and she's butt naked for like 2 whole minutes, and the horse does not like what's going on. And then she uses Cutie Honey Flash to turn herself into Hurricane Honey, a race car driver. Because Cutie Honey's ultimate superpower is she can do any job a woman can do. Which also means she has to do the job, but she also has to like wear a special Barbie style outfit and have like all these special accessories. She has to go the whole 9 yards. Anyway, more aliens show up and they wreck Tokyo. Literally each page is like another saucer beast showing up and wrecking even more shit. So it like starts piling up, and we start to get to like Mazinkaiser levels of like just crazy monster machine beasts going nuts and destroying Tokyo. The army shows up, the army instantly dies, and finally Grendizer shows up to lay down the law. Chapter 8. So Chapter 8 now goes back to Yuji and recaps his whole deal, why he stole the AFB, how he nearly crashed into Grendizer, but his dad is going to give him a pass because it is an alien invasion, and he thinks he might find something cool. Now, in a few panels here, Yuji is drawn exactly like Koji Kabuto, so Yuji is definitely Koji's replacement. And I guess I'd rather see Koji replaced than disrespected like he was in the original Grendizer. Like, he was just straight up like Luke Skywalker in the original Grendizer. Anyway, the army and the police are trying to deal with this full-blown alien saucer beast invasion, and they're not handling it well at all. Motorcycle Cutie Honey arrives in Tokyo somehow, which is completely illogical because she was riding a fucking motorcycle, but whatever. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that the city is Tokyo, but it seems to be Tokyo because they clearly drew the Tokyo Tower, the Tokyo Skytree, and the Shibuya shopping district. Anyway, the dinosaur soldiers all show up and kill the cops, but then Cutie Honey shows up like a second later and revenges them all and like kills all the dinosaur soldiers. Meanwhile, Yuji is just cruising around in this AFB looking at all the chaos and not helping anyone, as like millions of people are dying. So Cutie's Honey motorcycle at this point goes into overkill mode and pretty much just starts dropping like nukes like all over the huge sections of the dinosaur army. The motorcycle is also flying. It's a ridiculous moment. At the same time, Grendizer shows up and just starts scaring all the generals in the alien army because they know what Grendizer is. A bunch of different major alien monsters swarm onto Grendizer, and Grendizer just beats the shit out of them. It's a typical Buzzy cartoon battle. It might as well just be like a fucking like cloud of smoke. Meanwhile, Cutie Honey continues super overperforming in this battle with her nuclear-powered motorcycle. And finally, she explodes naked again. And then she turns into battle mode Cutie Honey, which is like her standard form. She pulls out her sword, Yuji sees her boobs because of course he does. And then she goes back to work plowing down the aliens with her sword. And in the background, Grendizer is also killing just dozens of aliens. Alright, Chapter 9, we are almost done the story. A major saucer beast blasts Cutie Honey with an electrical attack, but thankfully it only blows off her shirt. So don't worry, if you only bought Chapter 9, you're going to see a lot of boobs in this chapter. And so, after this, we are treated to page after page after page of Cutie Honey's shirtless boobs just bouncing all over every panel of this book. Not Koji decides, after like several chapters of doing nothing, he's going to attack one of the saucer beasts with the AFB, and good for him, it actually knocks its head off. Meanwhile, Grendizer is still killing like 30 different saucer beasts, but no one cares about that because there's no tits on these pages. Luckily, the manga informs this that Cutie Honey is immortal and there's no way to destroy her unless you destroy her entire skeleton. So Cutie Honey flashes again and turns into Armor Knight Honey. And then the saucer beast that had its head knocked off regrows a newer, uglier head. Armor Knight Honey rides her horse down the street, and then we get another behind-the-scenes bad guy moment where the aliens are just looking at how badly their invasion's going, and some of these aliens say that they're from the Ogre Gang, which seems to be a different faction from the normal vegan army, and I guess it's also a different faction from the Troll Army. These guys kind of look like they're the Haki Empire from Getorobo, where they got the horns and the marks and everything. Anyway, they're losing and they're freaking out, and they know Duke Fried is Grendizer, so they're like, "We're gonna get you, Grendizer!" Duke Fried returns to Maria, who compliments him on easily winning the battle with no help. And he's annoyed that not Koji has discovered his true identity, and he isn't sure how he's going to deal with it. Meanwhile, at the same time, Cutie Honey turns back into Hikaru, goes back to the farm, and is still annoyed that she hasn't found Daisuke yet, so she goes back to looking for him as Hikaru on a bicycle. Logistically, she was doing that exact same thing as Cutie Honey before, so I'm not sure why she downpowered to keep doing it. Anyway, Duke Fried and Maria decide that the best thing they can do is just come clean to everyone at the Diamond Research Laboratory and get their full support. So no more fake amnesia. That's actually a good character growth. So Duke Fried tells everyone on the laboratory his tragic backstory of how his planet was wiped out. And oh no, at the same moment, the sexy alien bug lady from the cliffhanger finally reemerges. The sexy alien bug lady gets super angry that Duke Fried is here, and she calls up her like vegan like owners and tells them that they're hiding at the laboratory. And Duke Fried finally gets to the point of his whole backstory that he has this really important message that the people of Earth have to unite to fight the vegans because the vegans destroyed his planet, and he can't allow anyone to destroy Earth because he's a survivor, and I can actually kind of respect that. Anyway, Fried asked the laboratory to get all the countries of the Earth to unite together to fight for their lives against the vegans. And they don't do that, but that's what he tells them to do. Anyway, meanwhile, Hikaru finds a UFO, and she turns back into Cutie Honey, and you get another 2 pages of her stripping off all her clothes, doing a henshin thing, and you just get to see some very, very detailed like shots of a vagina. Anyway, she turns her bike into a horse, and oh no, the laboratory is about to be destroyed by a UFO. Chapter 10 is almost the last chapter. I forgot there was a chapter 11. So the Diamond Laboratory is at this point being lasered by another gang of UFOs. More troll aliens show up, and a giant spider attacks the laboratory. Cutie Honey barges in her Armor Knight Honey mode, and her horse can apparently fly, and she beats up the giant spider. It webs her to a wall, which is like maybe a sexual thing. And also, in a bizarre twist, the giant spider has the same head as Kotetsu Jig. What the fuck's up with that? Anyway, apparently the spider is actually a small giant robot. Honey throws a lance at it and wrecks it, but then this creepy alien pilot comes out of it who looks like this like demonic tumor bug thing. Anyway, Not Koji shows up at the last second and bashes in its brain with a kendo stick again. Great move, Not Koji, I love you. Unfortunately, at the same time, the crazy bug lady sneaks up behind him, but Cutie Honey sees her coming, and she saves him. Cutie Honey flashes again, and of course, Not Koji sees her naked again, and he makes this fucking face. And then she turns into Mafia Killer Honey, and shoots her to death. Yes, that's right, Cutie Honey can do any job a woman can do, even Mafia Killer. Mafia Killer Honey's accessories are Italian handguns. Anyway, Bug Bitch gets shot in the head, she's gone. Now, at this point, Not Koji introduces Mafia Honey to his dad, and they pretty much have the exact same scene from the last chapter with Duke Freed, except this time it's, "Hey everyone, this is Cutie Honey from the beloved anime Cutie Honey." What makes it seem weird though is that Honey stays in her Mafia Honey persona the entire time, which just makes the scene extra abnormal because she's like, "Hey, I'm Mafia Honey, capiche?" And apparently Professor Diamond knew who Cutie Honey was because he met Professor Kisaragi. So the whole scene is just like, "Hey, remember Cutie Honey? Oh, you do? Okay, never mind then." Anyway, Grendizer Giga continues mass killing saucer beasts in a very who fucking cares, just plow them all down sort of fucking way. The Ogre faction identifies themselves as a special exploratory force for the vegan army, somehow separate from the main army while having stronger weapons because they have to explore things. Then Cutie Honey somehow 3D prints Not Koji a laser gun to put on his AFB. Guess what? He never uses it because we're almost out of story. Honey flashes again in another super horny, pervy Playboy centerfold spread, and then turns into the very Getter Robo Go looking combat plane Honey. That's right, Cutie Honey can do any job a woman can do, even be a combat plane. You know it's a very popular job for women to become a combat plane. Okay, so Cutie Honey the combat plane and the AFB fly off to help Grendizer, who once again has needed no help killing mass swarms of vegans this entire manga. He even has a sidekick to help him that he barely ever uses. But hey, it's the end of the comic, so everyone has to fight together, so I guess I can respect that. Chapter 11, the final chapter. I'm guessing this manga got canceled again. I just hope this last chapter isn't a shit show like God Mazinger's final chapter. So in the last chapter, all the remaining saucer beasts that are still alive just swarm right at Grendizer, and Grendizer flies away to fly them away from the city to stop the further damage. Then it splits out of its saucer and Maria flies away in the saucer. In this last chapter, Grendizer Giga's horns finally open up, which was something really hyped up it could do in the anime trailer, but this is the only time it ever happens, and as it turns out, it does nothing aside from looking cool. Anyway, Grendizer just fucking plows through all these fucking different saucer beasts. He plows through 20 of them again, and he gets kind of hung up fighting this one buffalo guy, who I guess is the toughest guy out of all these saucer beasts. At the same time, Maria 2 and Florian Beat go back into combat because there's so many guys to kill. And suddenly, out of nowhere, Grendizer gets captured and sucked up into the alien mothership. But apparently this was a fake out. Grendizer wanted them to do this because Grendizer is just so obviously stronger than the vegans that once he gets inside the mothership, he just wakes up, rampages, and immediately assassinates all the alien leaders. Grendizer blows up the spaceship from the inside and just kills every single vegan at this point. And Cutie Honey and the AFB are totally impressed. And yeah, as I predicted in chapter 10, they literally did nothing. They were just there to be there. And that is the end of Grendizer Giga. Evil is defeated, the good guys all shake hands, have a healthy laugh, and the Earth is saved. Wow. Okay, that's over. Okay, I gotta decompress through that one. Wow. I can really only compare this to God Mazinger, which was the last Go Nagai manga I reviewed on this channel. And I want to say, even though this manga had a lot of the same energy as that one, this is overall a better story than God Mazinger. But despite that, I actually preferred God Mazinger for its weird chaotic energy. This manga also has some chaotic energy, but not nearly as much as the non-stop shocking twist that God Mazinger had. I think what kept God Mazinger more interesting than this was Nagai had no clue how long he needed to stretch God Mazinger on for, so he kept starting plot lines, and then when the manga was abruptly cancelled at volume 19, he was a little bit screwed and he had to wrap up all these different plot lines as fastly as possible. And mind you, some did not have satisfying outcomes at all. They were very, very unsatisfying. Now, this time around, Nagai knew he was only going to have 10 or 11 chapters to work with, so we get a much tighter, much more congruent story. Although I will say there seems to be a major creative divide between Volume 1 and Volume 2. Volume 1, it felt like they were trying a lot harder to make it a good story, but I gotta lay down the law and just say that they borrowed heavily from Space Adventure Cobra, especially in Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is literally just the first episode of Cobra plagiarized. But since it took the story in another direction, I don't hate it like a lot of people do. And Daisuke's brainwashing, it makes for a pretty dumb plot inconvenience, but at least it took the Cobra plot elements onto a different road. I do think the plagiarism concerns are valid, but I also think they might be a little bit overblown. I don't know, it's hard for me to fully make a call on that because Chapter 2 is blatant plagiarism, but it's just Chapter 2. It's nothing after that, so it's more like, how many different movies and stories can you think of using the same tropes of aliens coming to Earth? But then again, Maria is just such a ripoff of Armoroid Lady, so that's like so directly taken from Cobra. And then when she uses her like super robot Florian Beat also looks a lot like Armoroid Lady, so I think that all rubbed the wrong people in the wrong way. Despite all that though, I would say that Volume 1 was a really solid ride. I love the way they combined this cliche Grendizer alien story and managed to like touch on like some contemporary issues like the American high school shootings. Because, you know, that happens all the time now, so yeah, that's just something we have to live with. One thing I am going to kind of look down on is Go Nagai really mishandled Hikaru's storyline, and for that matter, this manga is an epic fail for any kind of female representation the whole way through. At the start of the manga, Hikaru was definitely going to be a completely different character than who she ended up being. Like, this does kind of remind me a little bit of the bad storyline for Kaoru in God Mazinger. Kaoru just got completely shitted on in that manga. Meanwhile, in this Grendizer, okay, so the original Hikaru Makiba in the Grendizer anime is one of the most lovable girlfriend support super robot pilots in anime history. And at the start of this manga, you seem to be getting a cool logistical reboot of what that character would be like living in the same conditions, but in 2014 now and not the 1970s. And at first, you seem to be getting like these classic beats where Hikaru is a tomboy, Hikaru is destined to be Duke Fried's girlfriend, but all that gets dropped completely cold when, at Volume 1, she is just overridden for Cutie Honey. And once she's Cutie Honey, her character development just completely stops dead. She's everything Cutie Honey has been for the past 30 years, and that means her character can't grow. And it's so honestly fucking weird because it's like, it's a bait and switch, because I was really enjoying the new Hikaru that we were introduced to in the early chapters of the story, but no, fuck all that, she's gone. It's Cutie Honey now. And I think the only reason they even bothered to do this was either A, Nagai decided he didn't like Grendizer very much and he wanted to make Cutie Honey, so, or B, Volume 2 just wanted to be sold as a Cutie Honey crossover, which it sort of was, but it was a bad crossover. Like, logistically looking at the story, Duke Fried never met Cutie Honey, nor did he ever discover that Hikaru was Cutie Honey. It was really just this wacky Go Nagai crossover where Grendizer and Cutie Honey are happening in the same universe at the same time. But despite that, they don't really affect each other, even though they're interacting with almost all the same people and fighting almost all the same bad guys. So that's a really weird failure of a crossover. And as bad as Hikaru's character was assassinated, I have to point out Maria was too. Compared to the anime version of Maria, Maria in the anime was like Duke Fried's badass little sister. But she's been completely replaced by fucking Armoroid Lady of all things. And her design is completely thrown out the window for Mazinger Z's twin-tail blonde robot chick who has popped up in a bunch of different Mazinger anime and a bunch of different like capacities over the years. And then there was also Black Maria. Black Maria did fucking nothing. They could have just made Florian Beat a sentient robot. Or they could have just made Maria pilot Florian beat. It would have made no difference at all. Black Maria added literally nothing to the story and had zero dialogue. Now, it blows my mind that, every single fucking female character in the show ended up being a robot. And I know Nagai is not renowned for being a feminist writer, but this is the worst I've ever seen from him. This manga has literally 5 chapters of random teenagers and old men nosebleeding to robot tits. If I really have to think about it, the only female characters in this entire manga who didn't turn out to be robots were the normal ugly girls at the start of the storyline that Duke Free just rejects for being inferior to the women of his own planet. And then this all culminates in Volume 2 just being an endless slew of, hey, look at these robot boobs, hey, look at these robot vaginas, mixed in with all this background super robot fighting, and it just feels so much more trivial and basic than your average Go Nagai manga. I want to say this manga was created to test the waters or how good a reboot of Grendizer would be received, but I think it didn't connect to an audience because it stumbled on the plagiarism controversy in Chapter 2. And so then they tried to save it by turning it into a weird Cutie Honey crossover. But by all means, that did not make it a good manga. It's not bad by any means, but it's just not good. The Grendizer action is very lackluster and undeveloped. Grendizer Giga is a good redesign of the original Grendizer. I guess it's an interesting story change that they removed Koji Kabuto, but they replaced him with an identical guy who wasn't Koji. And replacing his guest star role with Cutie Honey to have the same kind of guest star power is honestly a bad move if you ask me. Because, I could get behind Koji and Freed's awkward relationship, but the Cutie Honey crossover just goes nowhere in this book. It's just Cutie Honey wasting time killing aliens and showing off her pussy. So judging this manga is really, really hard. I have to give the 2 volumes of Grendizer Giga completely different scores because I just found there to be such a strange creative divide between the 2 volumes that I don't think I can judge them fairly if I judge them together. Grendizer Giga Volume 1 gets a 7 out of 10. It starts off as a very cool reboot of Grendizer. I love the redesign to Grendizer the robot. And the whole school shooting storyline is very fresh and cinematic. Cons. Chapter 2 is Space Adventure Cobra. Maria is Armoroid Lady from Space Adventure Cobra. And also, just one day, Hikaru is suddenly replaced by Cutie Honey. Volume 2, on the other hand, gets a much lower score. I'm going to give Volume 2 probably a 4 out of 10 because it was not as good. Pros. It's suddenly a Cutie Honey Grendizer crossover, and it does have a solid ending that wraps up the story cleanly. And also, Duke Freed made a cool speech about why you should protect the Earth. Con. The entire second volume is just a never-ending messy fight with 100 saucer beasts. Cutie Honey contributes nothing to the plot, just a bunch of centerfold pages where you can look at her boobs and her naked body. Every single fucking female character in this story is suddenly a robot. The hierarchy of the vegan empire is not explained well at all. Alright, so that was 2014's Grendizer Giga, a very troubled reboot of Grendizer that alienated audiences with plagiarism, majorly detoured into just being Cutie Honey at the end of it, and was a little hard to follow if I'm being real, but then again, I was reading a bad French to English fan translation. At least it did work out, and we finally did get a reboot of Grendizer with Grendizer Project G, which I'm very excited about. The only thing I hope they take away from this manga is I did like the redesign of Grendizer. I do feel like the redesign made him more dignified, more logical, and more cool. But we'll have to wait and see what they do with Grendizer Project G. But I am excited that we are finally getting a new Grendizer, and I really hope this new Grendizer does justice for Hikaru and Maria. Anyway, I was me, Buster Green, and every so often I review a weird manga by Go Nagai, and holy shit, this one took me an hour to get through. Please subscribe. I will keep doing this if you keep watching these long-ass videos I make. Anyway, guys, if you care, I guess I got one more Grendizer video in me. And once again, thank you guys for watching this video. If you stuck it out to the end, you have my thanks. I'll be around later. Good night.